It felt like we had been running for hours. Due to the fact that Marsky and I escaped through the window, I didn't have any shoes, so my feet were blistered, burning and bleeding. But there is nothing either of us could do about that. Sally, Jack, Ben and Slender were going to realise I was gone, and soon. Not only were they on our tails, but Marsky was convinced that Jeff was coming too, so we had no time. We needed to get somewhere safe. "Wait, where are we going?" I panted, looking up at Marsky. "We're going into town. There'll be less chance of anyone finding us there." "No!" I pulled my hand away from his grasp and stopped running. "Won't that put innocent people in danger?" "We don't have time to worry about other people. All we can do right now is figure out how we can hide you." "Marsky, no. I can't put anyone else in danger. There's been enough blood spilled in my name already. No more." "Sky, I don't have time to argue with you. If you want to escape, this is how." "I can't, don't you understand? I don't want anyone else getting hurt." "No one is going to get hurt." He grabbed my hands. "What about you? Aren't you disobeying Slender? Aren't you going to be punished?" "Don't worry about that." He wiped a single tear from my eye. "How can I not worry about that? You don't deserve to get killed because of my mistakes. If anyone should be killed, it's me. This is my mess." "Sky, look, I know you're upset, but we need to get going. I don't want you to die, but that's what's going to happen if we don't start running again. So stop being so damn selfish and let me help you." He put his hands around my hips and pulled me into a tight hug. I clenched my eyes shut tight, stopping the tears from sneaking through. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "It's okay, you're going to be fine." "Thank you," I smiled, pulling away from the hug. "Don't mention it, but we really need to go now, okay?" Marsky and I checked into a hotel room on the outskirts of town. We were on the top floor in a suite. After Marsky locked the door, we both sighed and collapsed onto the beds. "I think we should be safe in here." "Yeah, this was smart," I smiled, closing my eyes. It took us a long time walking around town to actually figure out where we were going, so that alone was stressful, but on top of it, it felt like everyone was staring at us, mostly due to Marsky's mask. But he refused to take it off, so I guess I just had to deal with it. "The fake names were clever too, Miss Smith," he chuckled. "Smith is a common last name," I giggled, rolling over in my bed. As hard as I tried to brush it off, I was not okay. My stomach was twisting. I felt like I was going to be sick. The chances of me getting murdered today were high, but what makes it worse is that it was going to be at the hands of my own family. Because if it isn't Sally, Ben, Jack, or Slender Man, it's going to be my own father. I will never be able to tell him how sorry I am for killing Mom. I will never be able to tell him that I love him. I might as well die tonight, because the rest of my life I'm just going to be living in fear. "Sky?" I didn't respond. I had nothing to say. "Sky, come on, talk to me." "I'm sorry. I'm just tired." I heard him sigh, followed by footsteps coming towards me. "What are you doing?" He sat next to me on the bed. "Come here." His voice was delicate and soothing. I sat up and looked at him. He wrapped an arm around me and I rested my head on his shoulder. His hands trailed up and down my back. "I know you're scared. I already told you everything's going to be alright." "You have no proof everything's going to be alright." I raised my voice, slightly pushing away from him. "My entire life has crumbled apart. It's gone. I lost everyone who's important to me. And now you come in here like you know everything's going to be okay?" I stood up and ran my fingers through my hair, trying to calm down. "I'm cursed to have bad luck forever. It's fate's way of saying I was a mistake." The tears were brimming in my eyes now. "Sky, you're not a..." Don't even start, because I am a mistake. No one was supposed to fall in love with my dad, let alone have kids with him. I mean, it's fucking crazy, Marsky. And so now the world is regaining balance again, getting rid of my mum, and now me. Listen to me. You are not a mistake, and this is not fate's way of killing you off. This is just a bad situation, Sky. You're right, this is a shitty situation, and right now all I can do is wait to be killed. My breath started hitching as rage and fear built up, creating a cloud of emotion, clouding my common sense. I think you just need to calm down. The irritation in his voice was building, slowly but surely. You don't tell me what to do. You are nothing to me, I yelled. I'm only the guy trying to save your ass, so stop being a bitch, Sky. I never asked you to save me, asshole. Fine, next time I'll leave you in a house full of pissed off killers. Sounds like a plan. Oh wait, there won't be a next time because I'm going to be slaughtered, and you probably will be too, just for being in the same room as me. There was a sudden knock at the door, startling both of us. Marsky looked at me and must have seen the fear in my eyes. He walked over to me quietly and lifted his mask, just enough to lay a gentle kiss on my forehead. Go hide in the bathroom, just in case, he whispered. I nodded and did as I was told. Marsky grabbed a knife that he had brought with him and went to open the door. I couldn't see anything that was happening, but thankfully I could hear through the thin walls. One after another, I heard the locks on the doors unclick. Hello, the voice of an older man said, overwhelming me with relief. The man cleared his throat, probably shocked to look up and see a masked man. We are with the sheriff's department. We have had complaints of loud yelling. Oh, yeah, sorry. I was watching TV too loud, I guess. I cringed at Marsky's lying voice. It was beyond obvious he was lying. I'm sure that is true, but just to make sure, we're going to have to do a room search. No, I don't think that's necessary. Sir, we have already reported suspicious activity and possible domestic violence, so if I were you, I would strongly advise you let us in. Okay, fine. Marsky's voice was hesitant as he let the man into the room. Thank you for your cooperation. Yeah, whatever, he said, followed by the noise of the door shutting. My breath hitched as the footsteps moved around the room. Both of the men were talking about something I couldn't quite make out. One thing I could hear for sure was the consistent pitter-patter of his footsteps as he approached the bathroom, where I was now standing. I checked to make sure the door was locked inside. We knew nothing about this man except for the fact that he claimed to be from the sheriff's department. That is already bad, because he will arrest me on the spot if he recognizes me. But he could also be some undercover murderer working for, I don't know, that Jane chick. This could be anyone, and I was not willing to take the risk. The doorknob shook, followed by a firm knock. I cleared my throat and took a deep breath. Occupied? My voice cracked through my nerves. Ma'am, when you're done with your business, we're going to need you to step out. Okay, just, give me a minute. I stood up, but my knees were shaking. I ran the water in the sink and took one more deep breath. You're going to be fine. Just walk out there and own it, I whispered to myself, leaning against the counter and taking a good look at myself. I looked like an absolute wreck. My long hair was tangled and stained from what I could only imagine is blood. The bags under my eyes have only gotten worse from the lack of sleep, and I was already extremely skinny, but that had gotten worse too. I was past the point of being considered skin and bones. My ribs and collarbones were very prominent. I looked like a walking skeleton. I can't recall the last time I've ever looked this bad. Stepping away from the mirror, I slowly turned towards the door and rested my forehead against it, taking deep breaths. I need to really just get over myself and go out there. I mean, I'm pretty much royally fucked no matter what happens today. So why not just get it over with? Finally, I opened the door, slowly walking out. Shit, it's you. The man with dark brown hair looked at me with his eyes wide open. He was reaching slowly for his belt loop where I can only imagine his gun was. I looked up at Marsky, who was slowly creeping around, a knife in his hand. I guess it was dumb of me to stare Marsky down, because the officer noticed, and just like a scene from a movie, pulled the gun out of the loop and turned, pulling the trigger, shooting Marsky. I screamed seeing him go down. My instincts kick in, and I hopped on the man's back, causing him to fall to the ground, but not before smashing his head onto the metal part of the bed frame. He struggled to get up, trying to twist his body around to shoot me too. Tears were streaming down my face, falling onto him. How dare you kill him? I cried, wrapping my hands around his neck. You will never get away with this, he gasped for air. Others are already on their way. Well, I guess I just have to deal with them when they get here. I smiled, pushing my index fingers deeper into his neck. He started gurgling, begging for mercy, but I had none. I pushed harder and harder, hearing cracking noises. Then nothing. I got off and rolled him over with my foot. His throat itself was punctured from where my fingers had dug in, practically pulling it out. His mouth was filled with blood. I smiled, admiring my work, when I heard groaning. "Oh shit, Masky." I ran over to him, kneeling down to get a good look. "Hey, Sky," he chuckles. "Where did he shoot you?" The tears were back. "Shoulder," he groaned again. "I'll be fine. We need to clean the wound." "Okay, then we need to get out of here." "Is that too tight?" I asked, wrapping the gauze around his shoulder and chest. "No, it's good." He took a deep breath. It needs to be tight." I nodded my head and continued wrapping. We had been in here for about 2 hours since I killed the officer, and the body was going to start smelling eventually. "Okay, there you go." I smiled, running my hand lightly over the gauze. We sat in silence for a second. It wasn't awkward or anything, though. It was cute. "Are we ready to leave now?" He grabbed my hand, his voice delicate. "Yeah." My voice was hushed. Masky nodded and stood up, and put his shirt on over the bandages, cringing when he had to lift his bad arm. "You know, there is a chance that they have a SWAT team assembled outside this hotel waiting for me. I will protect you." "Masky, you can't protect me forever. I have to be able to fight for myself. I made the mistakes that led me to this point. I can take care of myself." "I'm not saying you don't know how to take care of yourself, because you obviously can." He gestured down to the body laying in the middle of the floor, causing me to let out a half-hearted chuckle. "What I am saying is that I want to take care of you. I care about you a lot. I don't want you to get hurt." "I know, thank you." I didn't want to fight anymore. To be honest, I wanted to lay down in the bed and not get up. Just fall into a deep sleep, forgetting about all of my problems. It isn't even a suicidal feeling. I was just tired. I was so tired of everything. There was nothing left to motivate me anymore. Well, no one but Masky, who pushed me to never give up. "Okay, like you said, there are probably people waiting for you, so we need to split up. I'll go first, try and distract them. I will do something to give you a sign when it's all clear." "No, you can't sacrifice yourself for me." "It's only a sacrifice if I get caught. And I won't get caught," he chuckles. "Promise me you'll be okay." "Sky, I promise you I'll be fine." "Okay then," I sighed. "What will the sign be?" "Well, I can't say for sure. It could be anything." "I will just keep an open mind," I smirked, sitting up straighter. "Good. After the signal, whatever it is, run into the east woods. I'll explain where we go from there." He paused. "Are you ready?" "Ready as I'll ever be." "You're so cliché." "Shut up," I laughed, hitting his good shoulder. Masky walked up to the door and paused before opening it to leave. "I love you, Sky," and before I had a chance to respond, he left. I stood, unable to move. Maybe it was the shock from him saying that he loved me. Maybe it was simply the fact that I was scared of death. Whatever the reason, I was paralyzed. The entire hotel was silent, not a word. If it were possible, I would have said that I was drowning in the uneasy silence around me. It was slowly creeping around me. The uneasiness was unbearably strong. Out of the silence, I heard 2 loud, ringing gunshots come from nowhere. I covered my mouth with my hands to avoid screaming. The tears were streaming down my face hard. For all I knew, Masky could have just been shot when it should have been me. I was the one who dragged him into this mess. If I was never born, everything would be okay. My mother would still be alive. I wouldn't have to kill my dad. Masky would be okay, and Brent would have lived, not using me for his revenge. Everything would have been fine, and at least better than it is now. I broke my father's heart. Jeff is pissed that I killed the love of his life, the only person that he ever loved. He didn't love me, not really. He felt required to love me because he was my father. It was an automatic love. He loved Hope, though. He fell in love with her. He knew he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. Whereas he didn't choose to fall in love with me, he felt obligated. It was work for him to try and love me, because my mum loved me. So now that she was out of the picture, Jeff has nothing holding him back. He can get rid of me with no guilt. A loud ringing caught me off guard, water pouring all over me as my eyes adjusted to the new light that was surrounding me. The sprinklers were going off along with a very dim lighting in the hallways and each of the rooms. The fire alarm was blaring, ringing over and over again. This must be the signal, I whispered to myself, opening the door. I was now soaking, my long hair getting even longer. It was in my face. I tried my best to push it out of my eyes. The lights flashed as I walked down the long hallway. The droplets of water that were streaming down my body were blending in with the tears. I had no energy. It was tiring to run. The hallways were too long. It was going to take forever to reach the end of them. Where were the stairs anyway? I can't even find my way off this floor. The carpet made a gross squishy noise as I took each step down the hallway. When I finally reached the emergency set of stairs, I opened the door and ran down. Once I reached the bottom floor, I would be out of here. I would be free. I would be able to meet up with Marsky and maybe even live a normal life. I know I was crazy, and it's a complete long shot, but I wanted a happy ending. I wanted to live happily ever after. As I flew down the stairs, I used the railings to guide me. It was dark. The only thing that provided the light was the blinking lights at the very top of the stairs. So the closer to the first floor I got, the darker it got. I was probably on the third or fourth flight of stairs when I heard the door at the bottom of the stairs open and slam shut. I held my breath as the silence grew. The flashing lights didn't soothe me either. After the silence had gone on for a solid amount of time, footsteps started to make their way up the stairs. I fought back tears as the sound of metal scraping against concrete gave out, getting closer. Slowly turning around, I made myself up to the closest door and opened the door, which gave out a slight creak. Fuck, I whispered to myself, slipping inside the floor and running down the hallway. All of the doors were wide open, meaning that they probably evacuated the building either when the police/SWAT team came, or they evacuated when they heard the fire alarms go off. But that wasn't what was important right now. What was important was escaping from whoever was walking up the stairs right this very second. Running into about the 7th room, I looked around for anything to defend myself with. In the room I chose, the most threatening weapon would be a metal fork. Maybe if I ran fast enough I could go to another room and steal something else. Suddenly the door to the stairs flung open, letting out the same loud squeak as before. I took a deep breath, my heart sinking. The sound of what I could only assume to be a knife scraping against the wall sounded out again. I ran over to the open closet and squatted down, gripping my fork for dear life. I was scared. What was so unfortunate about the entire situation is that I was just a scared little girl, craving the affection of my parents, wanting them to make the monsters go away. I wanted Mummy, I wanted my daddy, but Mummy was dead, and Daddy was the monster. Sky, the deep, very familiar voice called out. Part of me wanted to run up to him and hug him and apologize to him for everything I'd done, but the reality of the situation is that I could not do that. Sky, come out. Let's not play this game anymore. I focused on my breathing. I knew that if I breathed too loud, he would hear me. His footsteps got louder and louder. I wanted to scream. I once again pressed my hands firmly over my mouth, trying to stifle my breathing and silence my worried moans. My breathing slowed down as the footsteps got quieter, causing me to believe that he was passing. My breathing slowed down, my heart was pounding less. Suddenly, the door to the closet I was in was ripped open, and a firm hand grabbed a handful of my hair, ripping me out of the closet and throwing me onto the ground. "Please!" I screamed, trying to sit up. He pinned me down with his knee. "Shut up!" he growled, striking me. Crying, I screamed, "Dad, please!" I could feel a warm liquid dripping from my nose. I could only assume I was bleeding from the hit. "It's too late for pleading, Sky!" he yelled back, hitting me again, causing me to groan in pain. "You knew this was coming, you rotten bitch!" He hit me again. "Daddy," I coughed, blood splattering on me. I said, "Shut up, slut!" Again he hit me. I screamed, trying to squirm out from under him. "I did nothing but love you. I tried to teach you right." My fingers slowly moved towards the fork, which was laying on the ground next to me. Warm liquid fell onto my face. He was crying. I picked up the fork and with one swift motion I swiped at him, digging it into the skin of his face and leaving a fresh gash. He screamed and stood up, allowing for me to escape. I stood up as fast as I could and sprinted into the hall, running into the stairs. I looked over my shoulder to see Jeff standing in the doorway. The flickering lights made his features 1,000,000 times more noticeable. His round white eyes without eyelids held onto the light the longest, almost making them seem as if they glow. They were filled with hatred and disgust. His never-fading smile was malicious and angry. He had a new set of scars across his right cheek. When he noticed me, he shook his head and ran after me. He was faster than me, so caught up pretty quickly. I reached the door when I felt a hand on my shoulder. I froze, knowing that this was the end for me. I turned, my face bloody and swollen, eyes filled with tears, and looked at my father. And knowing it was the last time I'd be able to say it, I said, "I love you." Darkness faded around me as a sharp pain in my chest came suddenly, and that was it. Killed at the hands of my own father, the man who was supposed to love and protect me no matter what, ended up being the one to ruin me. And his last words to me? "Go to sleep, baby." The black-haired man sat in the soaking wet, light-flashing hallway. He had tears streaming down his pale face. The red blood contrasted with his white hoodie so dramatically, so perfectly, that it almost looked professionally done. This man, seemingly already broken, had broken. It was his own doing, though. He didn't have to kill his daughter. He could have held her and told her that everything was going to be okay. This man could have told his daughter how much he loved her, because he never got the chance. There were a lot of things this man could have done differently, but he didn't, and there was no going back now. Jeff the killer sat in the hallway of the hotel. He had been there for hours now. He was just rocking his baby girl, kissing her forehead, crying, praying and begging for her life to be spared, for God to just bring her back. Sky had been dead for 2 hours now. The blood all over her face had already dried. Her body was already starting to get stiff and cold, though even when beaten to hell, she was still beautiful. Jeff couldn't help but admire how she was a perfect mix of both hope and himself. She was just stunning. It really wasn't fair that she was born into this life. The life of a killer, that is. She didn't ask for it, and it was selfish of Hope and Jeff to bring her into this world. I mean, what did he expect would happen to his daughter? She was born into the life of a killer. Of course she'd end up crazy. Of course she would end up hurting someone close to her. It really wasn't her fault. It was his fault, and it was his deceased wife's fault. It was Ben, Sally, Jack, and Slender's fault. Finally, Jeff stood up, Sky still laying across his arms gracefully, and he walked down the stairs to the back doors of the hotel where he knew there was no police waiting, and he walked into the woods. It was time to move on.